Good morning. Today we're going to Broadcast Coffee. We are going to start writing a little bit about pride.
Life is just always mysterious and so you never know what's around the next corner. You never know what's around the next corner.
All right. Thank you, Broadcast. Gave me exactly what I needed. Now we are over, gonna take a bus over to the U District, like, I don't know, 10-minute bus ride. And we're gonna write up the actual article now. And then we're gonna go to the studio and get it all set up and done. Oh goodness, this one's gonna be a good one, I feel it. Alright, so this is too funny. Well, I don't know if it's really that funny, but the blog that I follow, LGBT Nation, just posted an article that the New York City Police Department just apologized for the Stonewall riots that happened 50 years ago. That's exactly what I'm writing about right now. Isn't that interesting? Oh my god, there's so many people around here. Okay, 1,500 words done. It's also raining, I'm wearing white, and I forgot a sweater. You know how nice it is to come into the studio and take your shoes off? Oh, that was a lot of walking. All right, so let's talk about pride. Oh, I have some thoughts today because I spent a good, how long was I at the library? I started today's research at around 9:30 in the morning at Broadcast, and by the time I finished writing the article and going through everything, it was about 4:30. It is almost 6 o'clock right now, and I have learned so much about pride and where it started and how it became to be like pre-Stonewall. And one of the things that I think I really took away from this is how like perspective can, or how knowing the knowledge and the knowledge of like these events changed my perspective on pride itself, because I had never really understood pride, and I always felt that I didn't really belong in pride. It was something that I've always kind of struggled with, but I've never really talked about until now. And it was one of those things where as I started really, really researching this and starting to understand what it meant and how it came to be, I suddenly realized that the amount of shit that my ancestors, and most likely your ancestors, had to go through to give me the privilege that I can experience now without fear of arrests or any sort of freedom. Without fear of lack of freedom. What they did literally paved the way for me to exist now. And that's pretty cool. So, I want to talk about my thoughts on it and just kind of fill you in on what I learned. So let's start with Stonewall, because Stonewall is the one that most everybody knows. Stonewall is it started out as a series of riots after the police raided a bar in New York City. And as this was very common for a lot of people at that time, and in this case though, the police stormed the bar with a warrant, but without prior notice, catching a lot of people off guard And then when somebody was getting arrested, she was hit over the head and then by the police officer. And that itself is the thing that started the riot. They started throwing pennies and bottles, and eventually one thing led to another. The police found themselves locked in the bar. They barricaded themselves inside, and then the LGBT people set the bar on fire. The fire department came and they did a whole 9 yards, and eventually the fire was put out and the riot subsided. Tons of arrests were made, and then 2 days later it happened again. And then the day after that, it happened again. And then the day after that, it happened again. So June 28th, 1969 marks the date of Stonewall, right? That is the date that you could consider Pride starting. But there's a date before that called the Compton. Haha, got it. It is the Compton cafeteria riots. This was on the West Coast. And I know it's in my notes, but I think it was in 68 is when this happened. No, it was 66. I remember this now. It was in 66 because what happened was is that the press didn't report on this. The police have since burned or shredded all of those records from this riot, and the only memory of this riot that exists for trans people is with those who've experienced it. This part right here really kind of struck me because we all equate Stonewall to the start of Pride. And while it's true, there were a lot of events leading up to that initiated Stonewall. And this Compton cafeteria riot was one of the instigators for trans activism and LGBT activism. And it made me really come to terms with my identity when I learned this, because I never really associated myself with those who fought at Stonewall. And so the Compton cafeteria riots, if you want to say, could be equated to the start of trans pride. Prior to this, in the between 1945 after World War II and a bunch of other dates after that, there were a lot of little groups, activist and support groups, and they were popping up across the country. But they were only popping up for one reason. They were providing like a legal support network and things, and political support network, and et cetera. But that was radical at the time, and so eventually what they started to do is their goal shifted from fighting the system to integrating into the system. It was to provide a sense of normalcy for the rest of the population. They needed to. Their goal was to assimilate into normal society. Normal is their word, not mine. So then, all these events, like I just explained, led up to Stonewall, and then from there, Stonewall essentially was hyped, right? Like there was a lot of political organizations stemmed from it. The year after that, Pride, the first Pride March started, and LGBTQ and everybody else in between suddenly got the spotlight put on them. And then we started to see anti-LGBT things, real, hardcore, they were called the New Right then, but it's pretty much the alt-right, just, under different names. It was called the New Right. They started coming up and they started putting pressure on LGBT rights and the freedoms. And then that was during the 70s, and then during the 80s was the AIDS crisis, and then during the 90s, there was the Don't Ask, Don't Tell thing. And all these events, every single one of these things led up to today, right? today where we see history repeating itself 50 years after Stonewall or 51 years after the Compton cafeteria riot. And that I think itself suddenly makes me more prideful of where we've come from. I've come to terms, with who I am over the last 5 years of my transition, and I'm comfortable in my body. And reading these things and knowing what they are doesn't strike me as strange anymore, because this is my culture, right? This is who I am. And I think through this culture, this experience, these experiences that my ancestors experienced, makes me respect and makes me very grateful of everything that they endured, so that I could live with a sense of freedom that was not part of their life. So that's what I wanted to say about Pride. It is Pride Month. It is the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. I'd also like to thank you for watching this one, and I have an announcement to make. I have merch. Finally I have merch. I have t-shirts here. I don't have the money to actually print the first one though, so if you want to order one, I will be printing them next Friday for shipment the following Monday, so you should have them in time for Pride. It's called Share All Your Colors, which is the title of my album, and I'm just really proud of that design, and I hope that you buy one and help me get on tour and help me make more albums and things like that. And I look forward to seeing you in next Thursday. I don't know what next Thursday is going to be about, but I'll find out, or when you find out. Oh, and one more thing. The article that I wrote about this is 1,500 words. I think I mentioned that a little earlier today. And if you want to read it, I have to edit it down. Usually I edit it and post it in the same day as this vlog, but this one is a little too long to do that with. So I'm going to post it within 24 hours of when this video is released. So if you want to come back, there should be a link on the bottom, or I'm on Medium, Claire Michelle Music. So thanks for watching. Buy some merch, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy Pride. I'll see you in the next one.